Hi, today I want to talk to you about discipline and consequences. And I want to use a very practical example that actually just happened at the school in order to show you how this could look like practically. So here's a situation. The students in the school just recently painted the hall in the school, and during their after-school program they have a painting course, and during this painting course they painted the school hall. The week afterwards, the teacher comes in and sees the hall is all dirty and really messed up. The students report that other students played soccer in the hall, and that's why the hall is dirty. These students also report that this happened outside the school hours, and other kids from the community were also involved. You also get told by these students, different students, the names of those who played there, and some of them were actually part of the painting track that painted the whole wall. So what do we do now? We want to discipline because it's not okay. Let us remember, why do we discipline? We never discipline out of an emotion, to vent our emotions so we feel better. We are the teachers, the educators, so we need to have a goal with our discipline. It should be controlled and self-aware, self-conscious of what we are doing. And we always want to achieve something with the discipline. So the one thing of the disciplining, the goal would be letting the student know that their behavior is not acceptable. It's not okay what they did. The second goal would be just letting the student know and feel the consequence of their behavior. We believe strongly that every action and behavior has a consequence, good one or bad one. And the students need to understand that. We want to prepare them for life and help them understand there is consequences for every action and behavior. The third goal would be, we discipline in a way so it doesn't happen again. We want to prevent this from happening again, or at least to less likely happen again. We will not eliminate all bad behavior, but at least make sure they will think twice about it. So, the traditional way of disciplining would be you corporal punishment, you get your cane, you whip them, you smack them. For those who have been reported, you shout at them, you're angry at them, tell them all kinds of things, or you threaten things that you will dispel them from the school, or we will never do this again. The problem is, with the threats, they're often empty, and we often never actually intend to follow through. We just want to scare them away. The emotions are also more for our benefit because we are angry. They don't reach necessarily something. And the corporal punishment, well, that's very debatable what this achieves. We suggest some different ways of disciplining and putting consequences into place that helps us reach our goals better. Because remember, we always have a goal that we want to reach. And because of that, that's why we're acting. So what you should do is gather those who have been reported, those who have been named that they were the culprits, and gather them without any other present. You don't want the comments of other students or smart remarks or them giggling and laughing. You get those who were named and gather them and talk to them in private. Then you ask them whether they admit what happened, that it was them who did it. Because it's really helpful to know that someone actually admits it. It's the first step of owning up to what has happened, and it's a very good starter to get into the conversation. Then you ask them how it happened. And you wonder, like, why should I ask them about how it happened? It happened, it was bad, they need to be disciplined and all of that. But I think it's really good to understand the story, to act more appropriately and specifically when you remember your goals. Because people are not necessarily doing bad things on purpose. I mean, when you played soccer when you were young maybe, and the window broke, you didn't go there with a plan to be evil to the person who owns the house to break the window. So we need to understand the story and that helps us to know what's the best way to do. After listening, you tell the students how you feel about it, what really happened, and why you feel that way. We are not saying to negate your emotions. Your emotions are important and it's valid because the kids need to know that they're not dealing just with an entity, they are dealing with people. So you mention your emotion and also the fact. For example, you can say, I'm really sad, that's your emotion, but also the fact, because they destroyed and disregarded the work of others, the students and the teachers. It was very dishonoring toward everybody who worked hard. It's not a game. People really put time and effort and creative thoughts into all of that, and they just destroyed it and disregarded that. The other emotion could be, you say, I'm disappointed, because the fact is they didn't care and appreciate the work of others or the school property. Another thing you could feel is anger. And the emotion would say, I'm angry because the fact is they wasted money. And you need to make them to understand that paint doesn't fall from the sky, because paint needs to be bought and cost a lot of money. The teacher also needs to be paid. The transport for the teacher has to be paid. And someone worked for that money that bought this paint, the teacher. Someone, because either it's their school fees, but in this case, most of them don't pay much. So someone gave money so paint can be bought and the teacher being paid. And their behavior is like taking money and just ripping it apart. You could even take, if you want to be dramatic, take a note and actually rip it, a small note, of course. Or taking a phone and say, if I just drop it, that's what is happening. You might not intend to destroy it, but you did. Okay, after saying all that, what would be, now you just talked, but already you told them how you feel, you make it a relational thing, and they understand it's not just something, it's really people involved. But now, what is the consequence of their behavior? How do you go about that? What's the discipline? One important thing to remember is we're not saying they are bad people, because then we would be all bad people, because we all do bad things sometimes. But it's important to understand they did something bad, with a good or bad intention. This we don't know, it's a bit difficult to say. But there's always a chance to have restitution and repentance and to get back to normal life. So we want to focus on the behavior, because the behavior is wrong, clearly wrong. So here's the consequence concerning the social and the emotional part. I suggest they have to apologize to the teacher and to all the other students that painted the wall, because that's were the ones who were affected by the action. So the consequence is apology to them. If they don't want to do that, then they cannot continue being part of that group, because they don't respect the other people, and then they cannot be part of the group anymore. Maybe for the term, and then start anew again. Practically, if the wall can be cleaned, then they should clean it. And if it has to be painted and they can help, then they should help painting. And then economically, in order to compensate for the money that has been lost and to pay for the new paint, so to say, they need to help with something. Practical example would be they need to help cutting the grass for the school grounds. It's hard work, that's good. So they feel the consequence. They sweat and it's tiring, no one wants to do that. And you also help them understand it's a consequence, not just a punishment, because someone else would have to do it and you have to pay this person. So instead of paying that person, they have to do that, and by that they're paying back for the problem they've created, for the money they have wasted. They should do this during after-school program, while the others have the privilege of being taught. They have to do that. If they don't even show up, you can try in the morning school maybe. And if they don't do that, then they cannot be part of the program anymore, because they lose then the privilege of being taught by you. And maybe in addition, maybe an idea would be that they have to contribute a symbolic amount of their own money towards the paint and the teacher. They probably can't pay the real amounts, but something they have, they can contribute in order to make up of that. There was some ideas. There's probably other things that can be done. Be creative about it, but keep in mind there's a goal for discipline. What's the best way to achieve that goal? How can we separate emotions and behavior? How can they feel the consequence of the behavior? And how can we bring them back to being part of the group again and having done restitution and repentance, which basically is changing their ways of thinking and doing things.